Hi, I'm Mark, and this is a brief overview of how to play Micro Dungeon Mapper for playtesters. The purpose of this video is to give you that brief overview, and it's not going to cover all aspects of the game. The final version may change somewhat from what you see here. That said, the mechanics of exploring and combat are pretty much finalized, so I'm not too worried that you would watch this video and then be confused later on, because those core gameplay loops probably are pretty much good by now. To play the game, you would need about 7 sheets of paper printed front and back for the primary 2 play resources, and what that provides for you is 5 characters that you can play. Each character has their own separate dungeon and items to acquire. And the format of the game is that you are a guild master, and you are tasked, well, not you're tasked, but you're ambitious, and you are hiring dungeoneers to increase the value of your guild. And so there are, you would hire 2 associate dungeoneers of the 3 available, and then once you have successfully completed 2 dungeons, then you're able to hire a chief dungeoneering officer, and you must successfully complete a dungeon with the CDO, and in so doing acquire an artifact. And then you'll also get some loot and treasure, and the goal, of course, is to, in as few dungeon runs as possible, obtain an artifact and then pump up your guild market valuation so you can sell it and start with a new guild. The other resource is the reference book, and it has all the information that you need to play a game. Primarily, it's going to have locations that you would draw onto the map, and then also items and, of course, monsters to fight. And the order is randomized, so not only does an individual game have a randomized order, but there's 4 other games mixed in there with it. So hopefully that'll keep it nice and surprising and make it a little less likely that you'll maybe spy what's coming up next. So I would always recommend the ranger or the tourist and maybe the thief as a starting character, at least in the current form of the game. The magician and the fighter are definitely they're a little more challenging right now. They have a more unique play style. So in this game, we're going to go ahead and we're going to give the tourist a shot, and hopefully we'll play long enough to get going, draw in a few locations, and hopefully engage in some combat, because I think just exploring and then getting to combat probably would be enough to give you a good idea of what it looks like to play the game. In the original prototype version that I put out there were some people who I think would have benefited from just seeing it played for a few rounds or a few locations. I think that probably would have helped them out. So we're going to play the tourist. This is like a standard RPG character sheet, although this really is more of a roguelike. I wouldn't, personally, I would not classify this as an RPG. If you really want character growth and things that carry over from session to session, this isn't the game for you right now. There may be a few ways I could add in roguelite elements that I've thought about, but right now it's a roguelike, and it's made for quick and replayable gaming sessions. Well, not the session is replayable, but the game is quick, and you can play a lot of games without feeling like you're just seeing the same thing over and over. So let's get going. So on this character sheet, like a normal RPG style sheet, you have the inherent attribute value in the upper left for attack, defense, and then magic, and then you would put the modified stat in the box here, and we'll fill that in momentarily. Everything we need to get started in the game is given here on the character sheet. The start entry is 52, so let's turn that right now. All the characters are given a choice of starting items. For the tourist, you can have you can start with either hot sauce or a lucky t-shirt. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick the hot sauce, and you can Yeah, when you get to play testing, it's all the same items for every character, even regardless of whether they're in that particular game. The character is a rank 1 associate dungeoneer or a rank 2 chief dungeoneering officer, so the items are the same. So you can check those out. But we're going to go with hot sauce, so that's 95, and then we'll put that into our inventory. So 95. And I should note that the starting entry is the only time when you are allowed to look at an item before you either purchase it or pick it up, because in this case it's your item and you can review them and decide for yourself. Just so we know, what hot sauce does is we can use it either as a weapon without having to equip it. So at any time we can use that rather than our normal attack, or use it as though we had it equipped. And that gives us a +1 attack bonus on that attack. And then we could also use it on food to recover an additional 1 hit point. And there are 4 total uses, which we can track right here on the character sheet with these boxes. I'm going to go ahead and mark off the last one so that I know that I only have 4. And then let's go back to the starting entry, and it tells us that when we're ready to begin adventuring, we need to turn to entry 27. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm not reading most of the text here, the flavor text. I'll let you read that when you start. Right now, let's just keep this moving along. All right, so 27 is our first location here to draw into the map. And there's 2 ways that you can orient the location. The simplest way is by the staircase symbol. That lets us know that that's the stairs that we took down into the dungeon. But also there are coordinates for the top and then leftmost square of either the hallway or the room. So it'll take that'll always point to the highest square and then the leftmost square. So 1B is right here. And we got a 3x3 room with a door in the middle of the bottom. And you'll see, of course, the door lines up, or rather the staircase lines up. And so we're just going to draw that in. Put the number there, which is always one of the first things we want to do. And then I'm going to write in the next location through the door, which is 21. And you're always able to write that exactly 1 square out from the doorway. That'll always be within the hallway or the room that you would be traveling to. So there's nothing else for us to do here. So we're going to go ahead and travel through that door. To do so, we draw an open circle in it. And if we were to go back through that door, we would need to pay 1 gold piece, which, by the way, I should fill these in. We don't have anything that modifies our stats permanently. The hot sauce gives us +1 when we use it. And then our starting gold pieces are 21. One of the benefits of the tourist is that you start with about double the average gold. And you also have the dungeon shop located for you already on the map. And then that, if you were to use a custom character sheet, you wanted to roll that up, that would also be listed here in the first entry. So you hear the distinct sound of a cash drawer at 6C and mark it on your map. Of course, it's already marked on our map. So let's turn to 21. So again, the first time we draw a circle in the door, and then the second time you would fill in the circle and we'd be required to pay 1 gold to move back through the door. If we're ever in an instance where we can't go anywhere except for doors that require us to pay that already have a circle in them, or even a filled in circle, then, and we're out of gold, then we would be lost in the dungeon, and that particular game or that dungeon run would be over. That adventurer would have lost, that dungeoneer. So let's go to 21. It's a hallway. So the first thing we do is, if we hadn't already, is to put to write the entry number in there, and then we're going to draw it in. And I'm going to do this quickly and probably messy, but really I'm trying to get through faster for you. So once that's drawn in, I prefer to go ahead and put the next number in there. So 78 is the next one. You're only ever going to have one door per compass direction, per cardinal compass direction. So we don't need to worry about which door. And as you might have noticed, the doors overlap. So the door on one room or one location is the same door as the door that you come in on the other door. They don't go next to each other. There's no space. The squares in the grid line up directly. You can also have rooms that share a wall and possibly a door. So the doors and the walls don't necessarily take up space. So the next thing we would do after we're in the location, we'll see here that there is a recover 1 checkbox on the top. We check that off. And if our character had been missing or had lost any health or magic points up until now, we would be able to choose where to spend that recovery, either recovering a health or a magic point. Some characters have higher regeneration, and eventually they will have a higher number of recovery points when they advance to a new location. If we come back to this location, even though we didn't have anything to recover, that's already spent and we don't regenerate any health or magic. Let's go ahead and mark the next door and go to number 78. Again, hopefully we have some combat to keep it going, or at least something worth showing. Okay, we are in luck. We do have a combat encounter. So for 78, we're going to go ahead and draw in this room. So one thing that might be different about this, or that you might not expect than a more RPG-like game, like say 4 Against Darkness or D100 Dungeon, is that the dungeon in this game already exists when I printed it out. I'm not placing these rooms. I don't have to arrange them in the right. It's not up to me to make them fit. They will always fit if I copy them incorrectly. Incorrectly, not incorrectly. Okay, so we cannot recover. Let's put those exits in. So north is 102, south is 1, east is 35, and we already know that west is 21 because that's where we came from. And then now that we're in a location with an encounter, if there's an encounter or a chest, we would go ahead and put that in a box in the room. And you probably don't have to yourself. I do this because I'm scatterbrained, and then I don't have to come back and read this entry, because all of this information at this point is now copied into the map. All of the directions are available with the numbers, so I know where to turn to. And this, I'm going to check it off here because it's unchecked. It's not completed, so I'm going to leave it unchecked in the room. But I can now play off the map after I finish this encounter without having to turn back to 78. So let's turn to 2. Before you stands a fierce toxic fog. This is not a particularly hard encounter, by the way. Has 4 hit points. It attacks at 0. Its defense is 4, and there is only 1 of them. And then we can see there's the 4 hit points. So you're always given a place to track the enemy hit points in the game. The toxic fog deals 1 automatic poison damage each round, bypassing defense. So for the sake of making this more interesting, I'm going to go ahead and use a hot sauce in my first round here, so we can talk about combat. If I were afraid of this monster and I decided that I wanted to escape back into, I wanted to escape it, I could, at this point, I would be able to do that. And I'll go over escaping after I've completed the monster, because I'm not going to try to escape. But I do have the opportunity, or the player, you do have the opportunity to escape up front without having to you can do without having to encounter any particular adverse effects of the monster. The only type of monster you can't escape from is a mimic. And I probably should add that to the mimic text to make that clear. But let's get back to here. So we're on number 2, a toxic fog. So the first thing we do is if I wanted to escape, I would have that opportunity now. And then if the monster had any pre-combat actions, it would take them, which it doesn't. And then if I had a pre-combat item that I wanted to use, I would use that now. I don't. So we're going to go into normal combat rounds. Combat is done in simultaneous rounds, and you as the player roll your own attack and your own defense, but you don't have to roll for the monster. The monster has fixed stats every round. Okay, so I rolled a 2, and as I said, I was going to use hot sauce. So that gives it a +1, plus my, so I have an attack roll of 2, an attack value of 1, so that my score is 3, plus 1 for the hot sauce is 4. Unfortunately, the fog has a defense of 4, so that does not hit. And actually, I don't even need to roll defense because it doesn't attack. It just does 1 damage every round. I'm already off to a bad start. That won't do it. Fog does another damage. Okay, there we go. So now I got 5, so I got a hit on it. Hopefully we'll... okay, so 1. A 1 rolled on attack always misses. You'll never do damage when you roll a 1. Even if I were attacking something with a defense of 1 and my score was 2, it wouldn't hit. If I roll a 1, of course I'm not really... I guess this isn't normal combat because I'm not rolling defense. But if you roll a 1 on defense, you take normal damage. So if I was a 2 and something was attacking at 4, I would take 2, my defense score of 2, the roll plus value. Score of 2 would be subtracted from the enemy's attack. In this case it's 0, but if it was 4, you would subtract it, which would be 2, but then you take an additional damage because you rolled a 1. And if you roll a 6, regardless of the enemy's attack, all damage is blocked. So, I don't remember if I marked that as a, I don't think I marked my damage for that round. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So, I rolled a 7. Its defense is 4, so that would be 3 damage, but because it's a 6, I also do an additional point of damage. So it would be 4. So I have overkilled it. But combat rounds are simultaneous, so I still take whatever damage I would take for that round. If I'm attacking multiple enemies, let me see if there's a multiple enemy listed here. You can tell because the hit point boxes have a dividing line between each enemy's hit points. Sometimes there's actually a multi-phase enemy and it looks like a multiple, so there aren't any. But sometimes you might attack an enemy that would have, there would be 2, and it would say quantity 2, and then each one has a the same number of hit points. You decide which one you apply your damage to, but you have to roll defense twice and for 2 different attacks, as long as, or 3 times if there's 3 of them, as long as those enemies were alive at the beginning of the round. Okay, let's get back to this toxic fog. It dropped nothing. So if I had defeated it, I would have at this point the chance to loot it for gold. I got no gold. Lame. So we're going to cross that off. And then, so I know that's the store. Because I'm a tourist, I have the store already indicated on the map. But I think it's probably better to show you a normal combat round so you get the idea of how that goes. So we're going to go ahead and go down to 1, which is right here. I promise I wasn't peeking while we were fighting that toxic fog, but I am glad that this is a room and has an encounter, so I know that I can fight something and roll defense. almost certainly. I can go ahead and tell you that you will never encounter the same monster twice on the same dungeon. So that's nice. If you're, you know, maybe you roll random tables and you just keep getting, you know, in some other game and you just keep coming up rats, right? Well, not only do I not have a simple rat, or at least no basic rat, although I do have varieties of rat, you would only ever see one in a particular dungeon in Micro Dungeon Mapper. So let's see, the encounter is 63, west is 4, east is 6, it's all on the same page. So you guys can pause it and look if you want. I shall avert my eyes. Actually, what I'm planning to do is complete this and then go back up through and go back to the store, assuming I can survive this encounter. So let's see what it is. We want to go to 63, so I've marked it on the map already. Oh, importantly, before I do the encounter, I need to recover my 1, and since that fog just kept doing damage to me like clockwork, that was really helpful. So let's go ahead and turn to 63 and find out what the second monster is that we're facing. Okay, this is a good one. This will definitely involve both attack and defense. So we're now ambushed by a giant. It has 9 hit points, attacks at 4, defends at only 1, and there's only 1 of them. And it says while fighting the giant, you receive +1 attack if you have a slingshot equipped. I don't have a slingshot equipped. There's no pre-combat actions. I'm not going to flee for either the giant or myself. So I'm just going to get to attacking. So I miss on my attack, but I block all damage in the first round. In the second round, I have done, looks pretty good. So 4 + 1 is 5. That easily blocks his attack of 4. And then 6 -1 is 5 damage to the giant, which is pretty, this is going faster. Okay, all right, I think we're just about done here. So another 6 minus the defense of 1 is 5. We have vanquished the giant. We didn't even use a slingshot. And we're easily blocking his damage. So that giant is dead. I'm going to cross it off on the map and award myself the 2 gold pieces that he drops. So now, having explored more, done 2 different types of combat, I'm going to go ahead and travel back up. So back to 78. So I fill in that circle to indicate that I've done that, and then that costs me 1 gold, which is a small price to pay. And then I'm going to keep going up to 102. And what you'll notice is that even though it's the store, we still get to recover 1. So that's cool. So we're slowly getting back to full health. Okay, so let's see, 102, Jane's Souvenir Stand. So this is on 2 pages. The first item is a smoldering mace for 13 gold pieces. That's enticing, trust me. An unfamiliar chest plate. Oh, and it's expensive. That's actually, okay. And it's exactly how much gold I have. So this is a fun dilemma here. So an unfamiliar means it's unidentified. So I can spend all of my gold on that chest piece. And then here's the thing, you might, actually I need to draw in. I'm being bad here. I should draw it in. I was trying to show you the items, but let me draw this in really quick so I can get an idea of what my options are. Because that actually does change what I can buy. Because if this store were a dead end, and I bought that chest piece for all 22 of my gold pieces, I would not be able to afford to travel back to 78, and I would become lost in the store, lost in the dungeon. So having drawn it in, and and east is 49. Okay. Having drawn it in, let's go back to the fun business of purchasing. See, this is where we can play something risky. 22, I don't even know what it is that would cost that much. That just may be a straight up plus defense item. So the mace, I know, is a good offensive item and probably pretty valuable. And then lastly, there's a granola bar, which would restore health when I ate it. And then I can use my hot sauce on it to restore an additional health. It's kind of a fun option, I think. I mean, I'm kind of tooting my own horn, I know. But you know what, just for the sake of fun, I'm going to get this unfamiliar mace because why not, right? Let's live life dangerously. So we have no gold. So if we don't earn gold before we have to turn around and backtrack, then game's over. Was that 47? Let's find out what that is. And no, I didn't peek at all at this game. I just generated it and started. Okay, so it's heavenly. Okay, so you obtain a heavenly chest plate. Well equipped, you may use magic charges, 4 charges. Magic charges are not usable by a fighter. So we're going to go ahead and equip that since it says well equipped and it's a type armor. So by the way, items, something I probably should have mentioned. If you notice, the hot sauce was type carry. It is a carried item, and a carried item doesn't need to be equipped for you to use it. It just rests in your pack or perhaps on your belt. Armor or a weapon or an accessory must be equipped before you can use it or receive the benefits. And there's an equip checkbox for the item. And you can only have one of each of those types of items equipped at one time. So your limit is really the size of your inventory and which slots you're using. But that's an intentional limit. It's designed so that you don't. Even if it's shoes and a helmet, they're still armor. So try not to think too hard about it. It's just the way the game is designed. But anyway, we have that heavenly chest plate, and what it does is it allows you to use magic charges. And I haven't used a magic charge, but a magic charge, you mark it like you would health, and then when you restore by moving into a new location, you can choose to restore magic or health, and that gives you 1 free reroll on an attack roll or a defense roll. So it's and you can only ever roll or re-roll one of those rolls once. So it's you can spend it like luck. And then the other way, which is really more pertinent to the magician class, is that you can actually also fire a magic missile, and with more magic, or even with 2, a magic missile will do the number of magic points you spent firing it -1. So I'm not quite sure where I left off, but what I was explaining was that magic can be spent either to re-roll. You can spend 1 magic as luck to re-roll an attack or a defense die roll. And really, attack and defense are almost the only 2 things that you roll dice on in the game. Everything else is determinative. And then the other thing you can do is you can fire a magic missile by spending any number of magic points, and then you do the direct damage, unblockable to the enemy of magic damage, unless they're immune or have a resistance to magic damage, of the number of magic points that you spent -1. So what the heavenly chest plate gives you is 4 one-time use magic points. So as a tourist, I actually have access right now to cast a bigger nuke than a magician starts out, because I have a heavenly chest plate equipped, which is, I think, kind of cool. Or I can just have a lot of bad roll mitigation. 6 is nothing to sneeze at. And you can't recharge the item magic charges. You can only recharge your magic points that are inherent. So, all right, let's see if we are going to get lost in the dungeon or if we can get a little bit of gold and breathing room. Uh-oh. You see a banded wooden chest. If you attempt to open it, turn to 29. So, no easy battles to engage in. So chests, you know, we might as well talk about chests. Let's draw that in. 49, 29. Let's do a little chest symbol. And I think down is 35, which we already have. Yeah, south is 35. West is 102, where we came from. We marked the door. East is 33. Real quick, so the chest can be one of 3 things. It could either have treasure in it, which could be a usable item or just a valuable, like a gemstone. It could be trapped, and the traps are mostly bad and unavoidable. So, which is new in this version. I decided it was rolling defense on a trap really wasn't different enough from combat. So mostly there are traps that are bad and unavoidable, but they aren't all unavoidable, or they're not all bad, I guess. And then also it could be a mimic. And the benefit of playing the thief class is that you can sense traps or trapped chests, and you can sense treasure chests. And I don't, if you can put 2 and 2 together, or I guess 3 minus 2, you'd know that if you encountered a chest and it wasn't marked on your map, that's a mimic, because it's not a chest, right? So, let's open it. Why not? We're a tourist. We have an extra inventory slot for carrying loot out of the dungeon. Maybe we'll get something good. If not, well, whatever. So let's see. Marked that already. Oh, let's recover that 1 before we do. We might lose it right away. Or worse. Oh yeah, so here we go. We're just going to fight a mimic and hopefully win 2 gold from it, which will give us a little bit of a cushion. No, 2 is not going to hit, and that 3 is not going to defend. I'm going to start spending magic here. Okay, so we're defended, but we're still not hitting. I'm going to save my hot sauce for later. There we go. That's the stuff. All right, so we got a 6. Pardon me. I think the last one was a 5. No. Sorry if I got it wrong. It's a solo game. Just have fun playing it. And I don't mind dying in the game. Actually, I can generate and print out another one, and that's actually how I'd like people to experience the game, is to not worry about dying and just play the next one and have fun, and look at as a yet another stupid death, which is a common occurrence in roguelikes. They abbreviate that YASD, and what that means is you will find the stupidest ways to die in a roguelike game. There was a game I was playing where I was a tourist or a ranger, I forget which, but basically I was the easiest class I had available, and I was trying to film a video too, an earlier version. This is the 3rd time I've started recording this to try to make this walkthrough. And I was playing, and I just kept beating my head against the wall trying to kill this monster that really all I had to do is I could have escaped, or I could have picked a more powerful item earlier, but I was trying to pick the one that would be worth more at the end. It was just, there's so many ways I could have avoided it. It was totally a yet another stupid death. So 6, 7 blocks all, but 6 does 2 damage. Hopefully we can smoke this Mimic. I should talk about, okay, so say I wanted to flee at this point. I thought I wasn't going to beat this Mimic. It's really simple. You roll a die for defense only. You take any damage, and then you just go back through the last door that you entered, paying the penalty, marking it and paying it. I can't because I don't have the money, and I'm not actually fleeing or escaping, I mean. But that's how you escape, and you can do that at the beginning of combat. Mimics are the only ones that you can't do that on because I don't really know how to handle it. And you can't flee boss combat. All right, here we go. 6. We're good. We have decimated the Mimic, scored 2 gold in the process, giving us a nice cushion. He's done. So I'm not low on health, moderate health. I'm assuming the boss is probably over here. The boss is always going to be more or less as far as it can be from the entrance. So if you want to get right to the boss, try to get as far as you can from the entrance. If you want to collect treasure or you want to try and restore health by hitting all those recover options that you have, then you kind of want to go try to make as, windy or spread out as much as you can. And it may cost more because you may have to do more backtracking that way. But we're going to go for the boss. So I think it's likely to be over and then down. I think I'll actually end the video here. I've shown everything that really is important to show. How to orient the first room, or actually there are other ways. You can hit a teleport trap and then you'll have to draw a room without it connecting to anything, or possibly without it connecting to anything. And so we've covered that. We've covered drawing in the room. We've covered the basic order of a room, which is draw it in, record the number, recorded the encounter or the chest if it exists. Probably it's best, optionally, but strongly recommended is to put in the next 2 or 3, the next locations through the doors, and then go ahead and decide if you're going to open a chest, or if it's an encounter, you have to do that encounter, and so do that encounter. Anyway, I hope this gives you an idea of what the game is like. I'll go ahead and show you when you're done. You'll always be sent back to the town shop after you beat the boss, so that you can sell back items that you purchased or found. You cannot sell back food, and you can't sell back your starting items, but otherwise you can sell items. So like this heavenly chest plate is probably going to be, so I can get 16 gold pieces for that and recover that, and then add that to my total gold when I get out of the dungeon, and and then I can do my tally it up, how much gold I came out with, and minus my pay, minus the expense that I brought in. Yeah, I'm a tourist and I have more gold, but it still comes from the guild, and then put the net profit in. So I really appreciate it. Hopefully this kind of shows you how to play the game. I'm going slow and talking through it. I expect a game usually is going to take somewhere between, say, 15 and 25 minutes, unless you want to get real fancy embellishing their map, or embroidering it, which is great. You make that map look good because it's the only artwork that the game has. So I really appreciate it. And I hope that you will enjoy the game and that you come up with some great feedback for me to make it better, so that the final version will be something that people would want to play. All right, take care.